Great. Thank you very much, Matthias. So good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. So we are First Phosphate. We are phosphate for the lithium iron phosphate LFP battery industry. We are the only public or private company in the world that's 100% fully dedicated to extracting and purifying phosphate, but explicitly for the production of LFP cathode active material for the lithium iron phosphate battery. We have 1,500 square kilometers of royalty-free claims, 100% owned by the company in what is the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region of Quebec. It's 2 hours north of Quebec City in Canada. These properties consist of very rare igneous anorthosite rock. It's like a lava type of rock that holds a very pure phosphate, perhaps the purest phosphate in the world, that's devoid of heavy materials such as cadmium, uranium, thorium, arsenic, mercury, and is very low in sulfide. So it creates a very purified phosphoric acid, which goes into making the battery, the LFP battery. We plan to employ a very prudent partnership-based model to integrate vertically from mine source all the way to the production of purified phosphoric acid and potentially LFP cathode active material for the LFP battery industry in North America. So when we look at the phosphate in the world, it's important to understand the differences. 95% of the world's phosphate is in these red zones. These are sedimentary deposits. They're old seabeds, old organic matter, whale bones, fish bones, etc. Until recently, this was basically, the only real phosphate exploited in the world because purity wasn't really a necessity because it was going into fertilizer. And from the fertilizer, a small portion of this could be purified up to purified phosphoric acid, but most of it was ending up on farm fields or in different areas of fertilizer and food production. Now, when we get into LFP battery, the need for purity, the more pure phosphate is found in what are the igneous deposits, sort of the lava-based, the old volcanic deposits. You have some here in Northern Europe. There's two mines in Russia, which obviously now are politically cut off. These are carbonatites. You have carbonatites also down in Africa. Most of them are very difficult and non-accessible. There are also carbonatites in Brazil. They contain rare earths and they mostly go into fertilizer. However, here in Canada, right in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec, we have a very special type of rock. It's an igneous anorthosite rock, and it yields a very high purity with very low trace elements. And 90% of this phosphate feedstock can be converted to purified phosphoric acid. And that's really important because, rather than being a fertilizer company where, most of your feedstock will be converted for fertilizer grade acid, with our deposits here, most of this would be converted into purified phosphoric acid for battery. So we are 100% focused on the downstream technology client, which is, very high maintenance, obviously, especially in the auto industry. So not only can we focus on the LFP battery client, but we also can have a mine size that's 8 to 10 times smaller than a regular sedimentary mine. And our CapEx can be focused on value add, that is, getting to purified phosphoric acid. And it also allows circular economy because the gypsum that comes out of the process of making the purified phosphoric acid is fully recyclable in our process, unlike the, the sedimentary gypsum, which is, full of radioactivity and needs to get stored in the environment for, many, many decades. And it has become very problematic around the world, which I'll show you in a second. So, just to summarize what I just told you, so we're in the right jurisdiction. We're inside of Quebec, Canada. We have the right type of rock that can produce a lot of purified phosphoric acid. And we have the ability to make purified phosphoric acid and eventually LFP cathode active material for the North American battery and lithium iron phosphate battery industry. So now let's talk a little bit about the lithium iron phosphate battery in case some people are not aware of it. So, everyone's probably heard of nickel, manganese, and cobalt batteries, electric batteries. They have nickel in them, they have manganese, they have cobalt, and obviously lithium. The LFP batteries are lithium, iron, and phosphate. So the iron and the phosphate sort of replace the nickel, the manganese, and the cobalt. Both battery types are very valuable. The nickel, manganese, cobalt, and the LFP both have sort of different uses. But the real advantages of the LFP battery are, they're non-toxic, they have superior fire safety, they have longer cycle life, meaning they can be charged and recharged multiple times, and their cost is a lot lower. So when we look at the last few years at the OEMs in North America, Europe, and Asia, most of them are moving all or a part of their production to LFP battery. Tesla now has 50% of its vehicles are on LFP battery. Elon Musk says that it's the battery of the future, LFP, and this is seconded by Jim Farley, CEO of Ford. When we look at North America, Europe is not that much different, but the two models of the Ford are already running on LFP battery. The Rivians are running on LFP battery. Three of the models of the Tesla are running on LFP battery, and also the semi-light trucks that Tesla is going to be coming out with, I believe, next year are going to be running on the LFP battery. And Mercedes-Benz just introduced a commercial vehicle in the United States that runs on LFP battery. So the trend is quite strong. Now, what's really important to understand is that this LFP battery is really becoming the battery of mass adoption. Whereas the nickel manganese cobalt battery is a very strong battery, it does have a longer range, and it's a lot more expensive. It's really used in the high-end vehicles. But when you're talking about the smaller vehicles, to get people in and out of the city, back and forth during the day, the mass adoption type of market, it really is all going to LFP battery. It's already done so in China and all over Asia, and it's coming to Europe and it's coming to North America very, very quickly. And again, it's non-toxic, superior fire safety, but it's the ability to charge and recharge. And it's also the ability to get the price of the vehicles a lot lower. Now that Tesla has the LFP battery installed, its vehicles are now under 50,000 and are approaching under 40,000. So that's a big difference over the competition. So it looks like all the competition is going to have to move to LFP battery sooner rather than later to be able to compete with companies such as Tesla and Ford. You can look here. These are the prices of the cathode active material for nickel, manganese, cobalt, and this is where the LFP price is 50 to 66% lower. Okay, so it's not only small vehicles, it's also commercial transportation. If you look at China, 100% of public transportation now runs on LFP battery. But it's also large-scale energy storage. So it's the energy that's coming off of hydro dams, wind farms, solar farms on a large scale, government public level, but also on a small scale. These batteries also work in people's houses to store energy as well. Now, we look just at the small vehicles. This is just less than 10% of the LFP market. And in North America alone, we're going to need 700,000 tons of LFP cathode active material by 2030. And there's only real plans to produce no more than 3 to 5% at the moment. And that already is an $18 billion business. We believe that this whole business of LFP battery could mushroom to about a $200 billion business per annum. These are very, very large numbers. When we look at the LFP battery, it's because it's very versatile, right? What I just showed you up there was just this little sliver here, which was, small electric vehicles. This is when you get into commercial vehicles, some military applications. These are the 5G towers. All the 5G towers in China are now running on LFP. And this is the stationary energy storage, whether it be, hydro, wind, or solar, whether it be large scale or small scale. So the battery can work across, various sectors. They were predicting that LFP battery would occupy 50% of battery chemistry by 2030. However, statistics coming out of China right now tell us that 66% of all batteries in the first 2 quarters of 2023 are already LFP. So these statistics are already out of date. 66% here is now LFP. And now they're starting to add a little bit of a doping agent to the LFP, which is the manganese. And you get lithium iron manganese phosphate. And that's really starting to push the usage way up. So, you could see LFP battery, LFMP battery occupying 70 to 80% of battery chemistries, in the really short term. This is a trend that everybody really needs to wake up to, and we need to wake up to it quick, because it's gonna really flip things upside down in terms of the composition of batteries over the short term. So we've established that the LFP battery market is going to be a large market. It's going to be a large market around the world. It's going to be large in North America. Obviously, there's going to be a need to localize this, in the various regions of the world. But when we come to North America, which is where First Phosphate is focused, there's a serious shortage of phosphate in North America. Already, we don't have enough phosphate for the food and agriculture industry. It would be politically, difficult to move any of that production from food to battery, firstly. But secondly, this is sedimentary phosphates, which are being mined in North America. They don't have the ability to produce a lot of purified phosphoric acid. They are already producing some purified phosphoric acid, and they're completely capacity restrained. So the only real system that could emerge is a new form of phosphate, a new phosphate mine for North America, and that's what we have here in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec. And that's what we're proposing as the new LFP battery valley of North America, where we could exploit this new igneous rock that we have that we know can produce a lot of purified phosphoric acid. It's already been proven, and it can make a lot of purified phosphoric acid for the LFP battery without displacing food. It would just be new production just for battery, perfect for battery. So that's what First Phosphate is going after with its claims. One of our key advantages is we're about 70 to 140 kilometers from the deep sea port of Saguenay. This is a port along the Saguenay River connected to the St. Lawrence with access to the world, where we have 3,000 acres of open industrial land available for the development of Quebec's second Battery Valley. As everybody knows, the first Battery Valley of Quebec is Bécancour. It's right around Trois-Rivières. It's just northeast of Montreal. That Battery Valley is almost full now. There's no more place. So the Quebec government has just put $105 million into the port of Saguenay to retrofit it with hydro, water, gas, and other utilities in order to start developing it as a second Battery Valley of Quebec. And First Phosphate is going to be central to Port Saguenay with the LFP battery, with the phosphate. So we're quite excited. We also have in place a memorandum of understanding with Crayon. Crayon is Europe and potentially the world's largest producer of purified phosphoric acid. Our agreement with Crayon is for an offtake agreement. They're interested in a portion of our phosphate rock to supply their plant in Belgium. But more importantly, they have technology to make purified phosphoric acid. There's only about 4 companies in the Western world that have technology to make purified phosphoric acid. Crayon invented pretty much purified phosphoric acid in the 1950s. There's a lot of companies out there that have technology for merchant grade phosphoric acid for fertilizers. That's very commodity type of technology. But the purified phosphoric acid is really, half art, half science. And we're very privileged to have the relationship with Crayon to have the access to that technology to make the purified phosphoric acid in North America. Okay, let's talk a little bit about purified phosphoric acid, and let's talk about regular phosphate as well. About 80% of the world's phosphate right now is used in making fertilizer. So we can use sedimentary deposits for making that. Another approximately 10% is for animal feeds. When you add it up, about 89–90% of the world's phosphate is for animal feeds or for fertilizer. That's very established industry. It's very commodity based. There's large competitors around the world. But when you get into the small sliver here of purified phosphoric acid, that's where it's very small. It's a very niche business, and this is where we think that this little sliver here is going to have to double or triple at least by 2030 in order to keep up to LFP battery. This little sliver right here of purified phosphoric acid is currently used in food and beverage. You'll find it in Coca-Cola cans. It's used in electronics as an etching agent, industrials such as paints, it'll help paint sheen, pharma, water. You'll find it in food. You'll find it in also fire safety, fire extinguishers, cosmetics. But it's this category right here, LFP battery, that's really going to put a massive strain on this whole complex. And there just isn't the capacity out there in the world to meet this demand. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about that. When we look at purified phosphoric acid and merchant grade phosphoric acid in the United States and Canada, we've only been declining in production for the past 20 years. This is what we need just for the small vehicles that I showed you earlier that First Phosphate plans to produce, just to meet that demand for LFP battery. But if you start putting all the other demands on it, the curve quickly goes up like this. Now, this is a CRU group. CRU group, many might know it, provides industrial research into industrial minerals. They're very conservative, so I like using their numbers because I know that it's the most conservative out there. Now, if you look at this line here, the dark blue, this is what they're saying is going to be the demand for purified phosphoric acid from traditional uses, like the ones that I just showed you earlier. And this is what they're saying is the capacity, up until 2045. So there's no capacity growth is what they're predicting. And just the regular demand is going to outstrip the supply, by 2035. And then here's where they add in, 2 scenarios for LFP battery. It's going to, more than double the amount of purified phosphoric acid needed. Obviously, I agree with CRU group and I respect them, but I think the curve is more like this. But it's great to start with a very conservative basis because it shows you that even on an extremely conservative basis, there's going to be a real need for this. So we feel that the price of purified phosphoric acid is going to decouple from the price of rock phosphate. It's going to decouple from the price of merchant grade phosphoric acid for fertilizer. And, you're going to see a hockey stick type formation, kind of like you have with lithium as of late. But the only thing is it's not going to be as volatile as lithium because it's always tracked to the fertilizer industry. Okay, So now let's get a little bit into what First Phosphate wants to do in North America. So we've looked at what is the supply chain going to look like for LFP battery in North America. We've kind of identified three distinct pillars here. One is extraction and concentration. This is where we want to be very strong. This is our bread and butter. And then the second is the advanced purification to LFP cathode active material. And then the third is obviously entering battery cells, battery packs, making EVs or stationary storage devices, and eventually recycling. So let's start here. First Phosphate at its future mines in Quebec can extract at about 5 to 7% phosphate in the ground. We've already done this. We can then concentrate it right at the mine site to what is a 97% pure apatite, which is the host mineral for the phosphate. We get to a 41% pure phosphate inside of apatite. The theoretical max is just shy of 42%. So we get very close to the theoretical max because, of course, we're in this very special igneous rock. The closest that you get in sedimentary rock is, sometimes you get to 25, up to 30, 31, 32% sometimes. So we're getting much higher than sedimentary rock. And then when we pass that through the Prayon process, that's where 90% of this turns into purified phosphoric acid. We've already started the process with Prayon. They've already created a very clean merchant grade phosphoric acid. And the next step is to create the purified phosphoric acid, which will be a big milestone for this company, which is coming in the next few weeks or the next few months. And then after that, what happens is you combine the purified phosphoric acid with lithium, a source of iron, and you make lithium iron phosphate cathode active material. So, this is what our bread and butter in here. We're partnering with Prayon here for the purified phosphoric acid. We're still looking for a partner on the LFP cathode active material side. We're looking for somebody to mature to the point where, we know the technology is going to be non-fallible. And then after that, this is where it would stop. And, you would then pass on this LFP. It goes into, basically battery cells and battery pouches. It makes battery packs, and then they go into the vehicles or the stationary energy storage units or any other form of electronic. Okay. I'll just take you through a little bit of our claims here. So this is the St. Lawrence River. This would, take you over to Europe, take you into the Atlantic. Just down here is Quebec City. 2 hours north is Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. It's a very beautiful town. It's very European. You have all the essential services that, you would have anywhere in the world. And just at 45 minutes from here, you get to Bégin-la-Marche, which is our first set of claims. And then at an hour and a half from here, you get to Lac-à-L'Orignal, which is our more advanced property that is already in the PEA stage. Now, why do I say all this? Is because there's a great industrial base in this area. This is where Alcan Aluminum, which is now Rio Tinto, is based. This is where all the aluminum is made for the automobile industry. It goes straight down to Detroit from here. So the infrastructure is already there. Aluminum has been made here for the past 100 years through U.S. and Canadian cooperation. So extending this infrastructure to the LFP battery is only logical. So we're in a great region for that. Now here we've got a mine, potential mine of 50 million tons of phosphate in the ground. That's about 425,000 tons of phosphate concentrate per annum. It would be, a yearly yield of about, 300 million with the secondary recoveries of titanium and iron that we have as well. Down at this property, which is just in the finishing the exploration stage, we found a massive strike zone, and we found phosphate at about 6 to 8% in the ground. We're going to be drilling a little bit more, but we think that this is really, a spectacular deposit, and we're going to be focusing on this property in the meantime. Also, because we're right on the main highway. We're very close to two towns that were ex-forestry towns that are desperately in need of revitalization and would very much like to have the mine in their area. And we're very supported by the local Indigenous group and also by the local municipalities that would really like to see this development happen. And, we're only 70 kilometers from the deep sea port. So 70 kilometers from the deep sea port here, 140 here. And we've also discovered, some really extensive phosphate here at La Ruche. So these are the three areas that we're working on: La Ruche, Bégin-la-Marche, Lac-à-L'Orignal. But we also have all these other properties here where you see the dots that are our properties where there are phosphate findings on. But we find we want to concentrate very close to the infrastructure. Obviously, we get the cost down. Just that our PEA at Lac-à-L'Orignal alone was an $800 million NPV at 5%, and it showed an IRR of 22%. So I'll just get into a little bit of what we've done this year so far. We signed our MOU with Prayon, as we talked about it earlier. We've built our phosphate concentration pilot plant. which I'll show you where the link is afterwards. We've made purified phosphoric acid, and we've completed our PEA at La Colonial. And we just recently signed an MOU with American Battery Factory out of Utah. They're doing their first gigafactory in Tucson, Arizona, and they need up to 40,000 tons. That's 20 gigawatt hours of LFP cathode active material. And we are going to be the supplier into them. Now that's a very large contract. There's a number of years to go, but it's about $500 million to $1 billion yearly of LFP cathode active material, assuming that we can eventually get to a supply agreement. Also, just recently, the Export-Import Bank of the United States, Ex-Im Bank, which is backed by the U.S. government, has issued a letter of interest to First Phosphate for $170 million of financing, beginning almost immediately to help us to get to the permitting stage. This is more than plenty that we need to get to the permitting stage, so it's great for us. It should be able to allow us to get there without any further or very little dilution to shareholders. Other things that we're working on is now we have to really choose the mine site where we want to do our feasibility study. We have to begin our site planning for the purified phosphoric acid plant at the Port of Saguenay, as well as potentially the LFP cathode active material plant. So those will be our 2024 goals, and continuing to work together with American Battery Factory towards producing local battery cells in North America. So here we are. We've got a number of large international partners at the table. We have an ability to make purified phosphoric acid. We have a lot of blue sky opportunity on our mines. A lot of ability to have decades and decades of phosphate. So it's a very rare opportunity to go from mine all the way to the production of LFP cathode active material. Right now we're trading at a very modest $20 million market cap on the Canadian Securities Exchange. We're still a very tightly held structure. Our management and board has 35% of shares filed on SEDI in Canada, but another 30 to 35% are with very close friends and family and strategic investors, and about 30% is really what's out there in terms of a float. But still, the dilution is very low, and now with the Ex-Im line of credit, hopefully we could keep this dilution even lower. We've got a very experienced board and management team. We go all the way from very strong business leaders to people who know the mines, people who know the phosphate world, and people who know the battery and LFP world. When we look at phosphate in the world, I just want to kind of end with this: is that some people tell me that there is no peak phosphate in the world, and other people tell me that there is. Usually, I tell them that they're both right. Because in all the countries other than Morocco, there is peak phosphate. There's no more than 10, 15, maximum 20 years of phosphate in any one country, including China. But when you go to Morocco, that's where the phosphate supply is going to end up, and more you're going to see Morocco becoming more and more dominant as all these other countries extinguish in their phosphate. Morocco is exporting to Europe, North America, South America. India would have a serious food problem without Morocco, and now it's even starting to import into China. What I really like about phosphate as a battery material is that it's a great way to play the battery materials, but without all the risk of the battery materials and without all the volatility that you might get in graphite and lithium. And even if there was a change in battery chemistries, I mean, look at the secular trend that we have here on phosphate. This is the amount of phosphate we've needed to grow world population to where we are today, and this is the amount of phosphate we need to 2100 just to not have a contraction in population, i.e. starvation. It's not a nice thought, but that's the sad truth of the matter. In North America, we're depleting phosphate rock. We'll be down here by 2037 at less than 69% of where we are here. So we'll be somewhere down here. And the price of phosphate just keeps going up. It's gone up about 10, 15%, while lithium has cratered 50% over the last year. So that's the really interesting thing about what we're doing. Even if there was a change in battery chemistry, purified phosphoric acid is going to be in major need for fertilizer and for all very advanced food sources going forward. So we're very comfortable that we have a back door if anything ever went wrong. Though any experts are predicting that LFP battery is going to go on until at least 2040, 2045, and we just got to start ramping up right now as quickly as possible. Most of these LFP batteries are made in China. We had our deposit looked at by the University of Queens in Kingston, Ontario, in Canada. They looked at it. They said the low abundance of gangue minerals and the fact that we'd be able to produce the phosphate responsibly because there's recyclability of the gypsum, and the fact that we're not in a geopolitically sensitive area of the world. And the fact that we can create a lot of purified phosphoric acid makes this a perfect deposit for the LFP battery in North America. When we look also at the way that phosphate is produced around the world, you've got the thermal process in China where they thermally crack phosphate. They're moving away from this process due to the environmental concerns, but creates a lot of CO2 and it creates a lot of environmental pollution. So in the Western world, we tend to use the wet process sedimentary rock and sulfuric acid, but it creates a lot of gypsum. That's radioactive, and it creates only a small amount of purified phosphoric acid. However, with the first phosphate igneous rock, the Prayon process, we get gypsum that's recyclable, and we get a lot of purified phosphoric acid, and we avoid these gypsum slag piles that you find in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida. We can recycle into plaster, and this has already been proven. So look, this is it. I know I've only got a few minutes left. At the end of the day, we're the only company in high purity igneous rock, the only company that's LFP battery focused, and the only North American source of igneous phosphate. So I'll just turn it over for questions at this point.
Thank you very much. Great presentation so far. Now we're coming to the questions. So could you provide insights regarding the significant phosphate deposit recently uncovered in Norway, estimated up to 70 billion tons? How might this development impact First Phosphate?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I've looked at the deposit before. I've tried to find some good statistics on it, but I haven't been able to find any good statistics. It looks like it's, I think that deposit was known for a long time. And I think that they've sort of worked on it and discovered more phosphate. I think, obviously, I think it's a great thing for Europe. And I think that, there should be, every region of the world should have its own sort of phosphate deposits. I just think it's going to need some work to be developed, and we need to see a little bit more like a 43101, a PEA out of there, understand some of the logistics around it. And I also think it's not necessarily a question of having the biggest and grandest reserves, but it's also a question of having the ones that are the most economical and are the ones that are close to infrastructure. So I don't know exactly where that's sitting in Norway, but hopefully it's near infrastructure, or infrastructure could be built to accommodate it. We're happy with where we are in North America. Obviously, our deposit is not as large as that one. We have a number of different sites. We add them all up. It's decades and hundreds of years of phosphate. But I'll caution you that what we really look at is the closeness to infrastructure. So even a lot of our resources that are very large are not necessarily exploitable, we believe, just because they're not your infrastructure. I don't know about the Norwegian find. I hope that that can become a really important source for Europe, and I hope that we can be a very important source for North America. And I look forward to cooperating with anybody in the space, because I do believe that they're into a similar form of igneous phosphate, which is great for the world and great for Europe.
And what is the significance of the letter of interest received by First Phosphate from the Export-Import Bank of the United States? And how does it relate to the company's plans for lithium iron phosphate battery industry?
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously it's very good now, because this is patient capital. It's not predatory capital. It's capital that is put forth by a nation state that sees the value in developing phosphate in North America. It's a very strong endorsement of our company. Sure is a big responsibility to make sure that we allocate these funds properly, and it allows us to advance a lot quicker now, right? It allows us to get permitted for the mine, for the purified phosphoric acid plant, and for the LFP cathode active material plant, very quickly. And obviously, it's a starter capital. If we obviously do the right job, it's going to allow us further financing into the future, and it brings a lot of the big institutions to the table as well, especially when you're backed by a nation state like you are here, right? I'm just playing our phosphate concentrate pilot plant. You can take it off of our website as well. I didn't have the time, but I'll just play it in the background while you're asking your last question.
Yeah, sadly, there's no more time for the last question, so thank you very much anyway. But we will, everyone can look at the video on the website, right?
Yeah, if you go to our website, you click on you will click on assets, and then look at pilot plant. You'll find this video, and it's just a video of where we separate the magnetite from the ilmenite and from the phosphate, and where we created our bulk sample of about 900 kilograms that we sent to Prayon for processing into merchant grade phosphoric acid and purified phosphoric acid.
Excellent. John, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. It's been great. Have a great day, everybody.